I didn't always understand art. A blank page used to feel like pressure more than possibility. I would sit with it for a long time before I made the first mark. Not because I didn't want to create, but because I didn't know how to begin. Still, I always did. Hi, I'm Calliope Tartels, and I wanted to make this because I think art is something we should all have the chance to learn. I used to think art was something you either had or you didn't, something fixed, a skill you were born with or not at all. When I was younger, I didn't really understand what I was looking at when I made things. I just copied what I saw and tried to make something look right. I would flip through old sketchbooks and see pages that felt unfinished or simple in a way I used to be embarrassed by. Back then, art felt like something that had to look a certain way to matter, clean lines, correct proportions, something to prove that I knew what I was doing. I didn't realize yet that the process was the point. I didn't know that even these early drawings were part of learning how to see. Art education changed the way I think. It stopped being about making something that looked perfect and started becoming about understanding what I was actually doing while I was making it. When I draw now, I don't just see the image in front of me. I see decisions, I see hesitation, I see adjustment after adjustment that slowly builds into something I didn't know I was creating at the beginning. There's something about slowing down in art that doesn't happen anywhere else in school. You're forced to stay a moment longer than you want to look again, to erase, to try again. And in that repetition, something shifts. I used to think erasing meant I was doing something wrong, but now I understand it's a part of thinking. Every line becomes a question, every layer becomes an answer that might change later. When I paint or sketch, I'm not just trying to figure something. Every line becomes a question, every layer becomes an answer that might change later. When I paint or sketch, I'm not just trying to finish something, I'm trying to understand while it's still coming. There are moments where nothing feels clear, where the work doesn't look like what I imagined, and instead of stopping, I learn to stay with it. Because that's where the learning happens. Not in the first mark, not in the final result, but in everything between. In school, we are often taught to arrive at answers quickly, to be correct, to move on. But art does the opposite. It teaches patience, it teaches attention, it teaches you to sit with uncertainty without rushing to fix it. When I build layers in a drawing or a painting, I start to understand that nothing appears at all at once. Everything is built slowly and even understanding. And I think that's what art education gave me. Not just how to make something, but how to think while making it, how to notice what I'm doing instead of rushing past it, how to see the process not separating from the result, how to notice what I'm doing instead of rushing past it, how to see the process is not separate from the result, it is the result. And the more I create, the more I realize that this way of thinking doesn't stay inside art. It changes how I observe everything, how I look at people, how I look at moments, how I understand myself. Something started to shift in the way I made my work. It wasn't sudden and didn't feel like a moment where everything changed at once. It was slower than that. I started to notice that I wasn't afraid of not knowing what I was doing. I could sit with a piece longer, I could look at something unfinished, and not immediately feel the need to fix it or rush it into being complete. There was a kind of patience that started to build in me through repetition, through simply continuing even when I wasn't sure if it was working. And I think that's what changed more than just my art. I started to trust myself differently. When I look at my work now, I don't see what it looks like. I see the process behind it. I see all the moments I gave up and all the moments I choose not to. There's something very quiet about that realization. I am capable of staying with something even when it feels uncertain. Keep going without everything needing to be clear right away. I also started to understand emotion differently through making. Things I didn't know how to say became something I could put into form, into color, into texture, into layers that held more than words ever could. And in that process, I stopped trying to make everything perfect. Instead, I started trying to make it honest. Even if it was messy, even if it changed along the way. Because I began to understand that what I was feeling didn't need to disappear for the work to be complete. It could exist inside it. And maybe that was the real shift. Not just becoming more confident in what I make, but becoming more comfortable with who I am while I'm making it. There's a quiet assumption in education that some subjects are essential and others are optional. That art belongs in the background. But art is where we learn how to see, how to slow down, how to notice what doesn't immediately have a name. A classroom doesn't have to be loud and full. Sometimes it looks like a desk, a chair, and a sketchbook waiting to be opened. Sometimes it's a space that almost feels empty, but isn't. But in that space, something else is happening. We are learning how to think differently, not just to find answers, but to ask better questions, not to follow instructions, but to interpret them. Art in education isn't decoration. It's something added when everything else is done. It's a way of making sense of what we're taught, and sometimes a way of questioning it. When tools are laid out, pencils, paper, images, unfinished ideas, they aren't just materials. They're possibilities. And in the quiet classroom where nothing is demanding attention all at once, there is room to create meaning instead of memorizing it. This is what art gives us. Not just what to make, but how to think. And yet, not every classroom stays like this. Some spaces lose their quiet creativity slowly, not all at once, but piece by piece. A chair stays empty a little longer, a sketchbook closes before it's finished, materials are put away and don't come back out. Light changes the room, or maybe the absence of what used to happen in it. When funding is reduced, art is often one of the first things to go. Not because it doesn't matter, because it's treated like it matters less. And what's lost isn't always immediately visible. It's not just supplies, it's time. It's space to explore without a right answer. It's the freedom to create without rushing toward a test. Silence replaces discussion. Completion replaces experimentation, and imagination starts to feel like something extra instead of something necessary. A closed sketchbook isn't just an ending, it's a potential that didn't get the chance to unfold. And slowly, a classroom that once made room for expression becomes a place where expression is no longer required, or no longer possible. But even in that loss, something remains, a way of seeing that doesn't disappear so easily, because art isn't only what we make, it's how we learn to understand what we're looking at, to notice details others might pass by, to sit with something unfinished without needing to rush into completion. To think in layers, not just answers. This is how I learn to see, not with just my eyes, but with attention, with patience, with care. Art is seeing and it is thinking, and over time, it becomes a way of becoming, of understanding yourself, and understanding the world around you in a different way. When I step back from my work, there is stillness, but not emptiness. Light moves across the table, pages turn, and they even end on blankness. Hands rest, but they are not finished. Because what art teaches doesn't end with the project, it stays. In how we observe and how we imagine, and how we choose to see what others overlook. And that's why art education matters. Not because it creates artists alone, because it creates ways of thinking that we carry on with us long after the classroom goes quiet. Art education gave me more than artistic skills. It gave me confidence, perspective, and a new way of seeing the world. We should keep it alive so others can experience the same transformation.